Seattle autumn always hits with that familiar, yet unsettling, chill. The golden rust leaves were coming down in torrents, carpeting the steep, narrow road outside my one-bedroom apartment. A sharp, damp air was already finding its way through the window frame, making me swear this fall would be different from everyone before it. I took a lukewarm sip of coffee, but the bitterness couldn't cut through the hollow knot in my stomach. Everything had changed last night. Emily, the woman I thought understood me better than anyone alive, had seen the thing I'd been keeping under lock and key. It wasn't just a simple truth exposed. It was a hairline fracture tearing through the supposedly bedrock foundation of our life together. I looked into her eyes and saw a volatile mix of doubt, disappointment, and a profound, exhausted sadness I'd never been the cause of before. We stood there in the thick, oppressive silence. Nothing was said, only the steady, relentless tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, counting down time like a bomb timer signaling the inevitable shift. Every minute, subtle told a slight slump of her shoulders, the tremor in her hand holding the glass of water. The way her gaze skirted mine screamed that from this moment on, our relationship was permanently altered. I wanted to find the right words, a perfect, clarifying statement, but they just slid out of my reach. I took a deep, steadying breath, looking out the window at the leaves chasing the wind, and thought, one single moment, that's all it takes to burn everything down. But the inevitable drama wasn't finished. A sharp, simple ping came from my phone on the kitchen counter, notification that felt like a defibrillator jolt to my chest. Emily didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the scarred wooden floor, her grip tightening on the mug as if holding on to the last sliver of her composure. I knew tonight we would finally have to face the words we hadn't spoken, and the decisions neither of us wanted to make. The surrounding sounds sharpened into high definition, the rush of a car on the steep street below, the rustle of leaves against the pane, the accusatory tick-tock of the clock. Each sound underlined the weight of the moment. I started to notice the minor details of the room, the worn thread of the area rug, the weak, amber glow from the desk lamp, the smiling, framed photos of us on the wall, all reminders that this seemingly normal space could implode at any second. I walked slowly toward the window, trying to anchor myself. Watching the leaves fall, I asked myself the impossible question: could things ever go back? Or would we be forced to learn how to live with a truth neither of us had ever envisioned? Emily remained perfectly still, her eyes tracking my every move, trying to anticipate my next retreat or attack. The silence was a concrete block between us, but inside my head, it was pure noise. I replayed every story, every shared promise, wondering if one small secret was truly enough to dismantle everything we'd built. Every sound, light, and moment felt critical. A wrong look, a rushed word, or a careless gesture, any of it could change the outcome. I finally sank into the armchair, meeting Emily's gaze, and saw the ache in her that went deeper than anger. She was fighting a brutal internal war between saying what she knew and keeping her calm facade. I realized then that sometimes, silence holds more crushing weight than any confession. And one thing I knew with absolute clarity, from this second we were standing on the edge. One moment, one decision, one word, could determine the rest of our lives. Our story wasn't ending, it was just beginning a relentless new chapter, one where trust, love, and a desperate lie would finally be put to the test. The small apartment on the Seattle slope was drowned in the morning's weak, diffused light. The familiar chill seeped in through the windows, carrying the scent of dead leaves and damp earth from the street. I stood by the counter, coffee mug in hand, but the familiar bitterness was gone. Everything around me seemed to underscore that peace had checked out of this room the night before. Emily was curled up on the sofa, eyes bruised with exhaustion, her gaze fixed somewhere distant. How did we let things get this bad? Her voice was low, shaky, an effort to contain the tidal wave of emotion crashing beneath it. I wanted to explain, to tell her it wasn't as catastrophic as she feared, but the words felt suddenly impotent, lodging like stones in my throat. I moved closer, trying to maintain a careful buffer of space so as not to spook her. Emily, I don't know where to start, I managed, my voice thin. But last night, I never considered the fallout. She took a long, ragged breath, then slowly rose to meet me, her eyes a mix of wounded suspicion and profound sorrow. You never considered the fallout. Do you have any idea what this has done to me? Every word was a impact punch, slowly deepening the bruise in my gut. I felt her disappointment, her injury, and the sheer bewilderment of it all reflected back at me. We stood there, face to face, yet the chasm between our two souls felt wider than any physical distance. I wanted to reach for her hand, to offer some inadequate comfort, but the paralyzing fear of making things instantly worse kept me rooted to the spot. The silence stretched, then Emily sighed, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Do you remember when we promised we'd always be straight with each other? I nodded, the gesture feeling utterly hollow. That vow now felt like a shattered mirror, reflecting only doubt and pain. I sank onto the armchair looking straight at Emily, and saw the deep ache in her expression. She was locked in a grueling battle between confronting me with everything she knew and struggling to keep her composure. I realized again, sometimes silence carries a heavier payload than any confession. The pause was deafening, broken only by the clock's steady tick. I could feel every beat of my heart, every shallow breath, counting down to a pivotal moment. One wrong move, one rushed phrase, and everything could detonate. Suddenly, Emily stood, turning sharply to the window, looking out onto the sodden street. Have you ever wondered, if things change this much, what happens to us? Her voice was small, but the question landed like a sledgehammer. I realized it wasn't just the exposed secret, it was the doubt, the fear of losing what we had, that was ratcheting up the tension with every passing second. I took a deep breath, raising my hand to touch her shoulder, but she flinched away, taking a small step back. That moment clarified everything. To save us, I had to be meticulous, step by cautious step, word by painful word. I couldn't rush this. Every action had to be authentic. Every word had to come from an honest core. Outside, the autumn wind persisted, carrying the cold and the smell of dead leaves. It was a sharp reminder that life wasn't waiting for us, and every decision mattered. I looked at Emily. Her eyes held a flicker of hope, but it was overshadowed by fear. I knew if I didn't handle this perfectly, this moment would become the point of no return. I sat back down, giving her space to process. She stayed facing the window, clutching her arms tightly. I felt it clearly. This was no longer about words or actions. It was about trust, love, and the capacity for forgiveness. And I knew that if I wanted to keep her, I had to face myself before I could truly face her. In that oppressive quiet, I understood. Our story wasn't on the verge of resolution. It was just stepping fully into the most relentless chapter yet. The secrets, the doubts, and the pent-up emotions were all poised to explode. Every second, every glance, every unsaid word, had the power to change the entire trajectory of the narrative. The early afternoon in Seattle still carried that signature autumn bite. The weak light fought its way through the sheer curtains, casting muted stripes across the polished wood floor, but the air in the room felt heavy, dense, mirroring the profound silence between Emily and me. She was still on the sofa, distant, her arms wrapped tightly around a cushion. I stood near the window watching the golden leaves spiral down the street in the cold wind, yet my focus was entirely on her. This silence wasn't just an empty space. It was the vast, terrifying distance between trust and suspicion, between love and irreparable injury. Emily finally let out a shuddering sigh, her voice low but brittle with resolve. Do you know what the scariest part of this is? It's not the secret itself. It's the fear that you will change, and I will lose the person I actually fell in love with. I wanted to reassure her, to tell her I was still me, still her man, and still loved her fiercely, but the words felt flimsy against the weight of her gaze. I edged closer, maintaining a careful distance so as not to crowd her, my voice catching slightly. Emily, I know you're terrified. I am too, but I swear, I'm not going to let this be the thing that ends us. She turned her face away, her lips pressed into a thin white line. Promises, I've heard plenty of those, but nothing has changed. Everything is still broken. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and for the first time, I saw a flash of raw anger mixed with her deep pain. I took a slow, deliberate breath, forcing myself to remain steady. I realized the conflict wasn't just about the exposed secret, but about long-simmering damage, the silent compromises that had now become gaping cracks. Emily stood, walking slowly toward the dining table, her eyes still on the window. Do you even remember those days we used to walk around Lake Union, when things felt simple? Her voice softened for a moment, a fragile truce in the emotional storm. Do you remember that, or have you just forgotten it all? I moved to her, gently laying my hand on her shoulder. I remember everything. I remember every moment, every promise, every one of your smiles. Emily flinched slightly, but didn't pull away. That fleeting contact was a tether, a fragile, invisible thread pulling us back together, if only for a second. But the conflict surged again, fiercer this time. Emily pulled back, her voice shaking. Do you truly see me, or are you just saying this to make yourself feel better? Her question froze me. I knew instinctively that any dishonest word now, any hollow gesture, would send us plunging over the edge. The autumn wind outside persisted, a cold, relentless reminder that time was moving, and every choice here was critical. Every look, every glance, every spoken word was a potential turning point. Emily finally turned back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. If we can't get past this, I'm afraid I'll lose you forever. I looked deep into her eyes, absorbing the fear, the damage, and the love still fighting to survive. I knew that to save this relationship I had to face all of it, the secret, the mistake, and, most importantly, myself. That in that singular moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. It was just us, facing each other, drowning in bottled-up emotions, the fear of loss, and an unknowable future. This was the point of decision. One wrong step, one misspoken word, and it would all shatter. I took a final deep breath, stepping closer to her, and this time, not to speak, but to listen. I met her gaze, waiting for her to break the silence. Emily remained quiet too, weighing something profound. It was as if our breaths and heartbeats were momentarily synced, waiting for the moment of explosion or the moment of hard-won repair. The heavy silence stretched, making me realize the conflict wasn't just the event that happened, but how we chose to confront and navigate it. One decisive moment, one honest word, or one gentle touch could change everything. And I knew Emily was waiting for me, but I was also waiting for myself to find the integrity to hold on to the love, the trust, and the promises we had made. The Seattle afternoon was fading into a bruised twilight, the last warm honeyed light stretching through the thin curtains and across the apartment's polished floor. The silence was still present, but now it felt less like a heavy weight and more like the tense, breathless anticipation before a moment of truth. Emily remained standing, her arms wrapped around her chest, her eyes a dangerous mix of hurt, anger, hope, and hesitation. She took a slow, deliberate step toward me, her voice trembling but resolute. I need to know right now, in this moment, what do you genuinely feel about me? Do you still love me the way you did before this? The question hit me like a physical shock, jolting my heart into a frantic rhythm. I inhaled deeply, closing the remaining gap between us, and gently took her hand. Emily, I still love you, more than anything. I know things have changed, but my heart is still irrevocably yours. She pulled her hand back slightly, her eyes welling up, her voice thick with emotion. But you kept secrets from me. You withheld things I deserved to know. How can I ever trust you completely again? I dropped to one knee, not in a plea, but in a profound gesture of surrender and sincerity. And I can't erase the past, but I swear to you that from this day forward, there will be no more hidden corners. I want to fight through this with you, not just with empty words, but with honest action, every single day. In that moment, the room seemed to stop breathing. Emily looked down at me, her hand hesitantly reaching out to rest on mine. The silence stretched again, broken only by the autumn wind outside and the rustle of dry leaves. Every heartbeat, every shallow breath felt like a silent promise to an uncertain future. Finally, she spoke, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive everything right now, but I still want to try. I still want us to find our way back. A wave of relief and anxiety crashed over me. My heart soared, but I knew this was only the first, terrifying step. The true test lay ahead, but at least we were moving forward together, facing our fears and honest emotions instead of running away. Emily moved closer, cupping my cheek with a shaky, gentle hand. If we do this, if we get through this, you have to promise, you will never shut me out again. I gripped her hand, meeting her gaze squarely. I promise. There's nothing left to hide. I want you to see the real me, every part, every mistake, and all the love. It's all for you. She gave a small, fragile nod, her eyes glistening with released tension. The moment felt long and beautiful, two people standing at the edge of losing everything, choosing instead to confront, to trust, and to begin the arduous process of forgiveness. That we sat down together on the sofa, hands intertwined, looking out at the fading light. The golden leaves were still falling, the autumn wind still blew, but now there was a new warmth in the apartment, a fragile but real belief that we could weather this storm. Emily let out a long, quiet exhale, her voice subdued but relieved. This feeling, it's like we're starting over. I managed a weak smile, squeezing her hand tighter. We are, and this time, we'll do it side by side every step of the way. No running, no hiding. In that shared moment, the room filled with a powerful, if temporary, peace. This was where our journey of repair truly began, a journey fueled by forgiveness, trust, and the enduring power of true, messy love. The Seattle afternoon was fading into a bruised twilight. the last warm honeyed light stretching through the thin curtains and across the apartment's polished floor. The silence was still present, but now it felt less like a heavy weight and more like the tense, breathless anticipation before a moment of truth. Emily remained standing, her arms wrapped around her chest, her eyes a dangerous mix of hurt, anger, hope, and hesitation. She took a slow, deliberate step toward me, her voice trembling but resolute. I need to know right now, in this moment, what do you genuinely feel about me? Do you still love me the way you did before this? The question hit me like a physical shock, jolting my heart into a frantic rhythm. I inhaled deeply, closing the remaining gap between us, and gently took her hand. Emily, I still love you, more than anything. I know things have changed, but my heart is still irrevocably yours. She pulled her hand back slightly, her eyes welling up, her voice thick with emotion. But you kept secrets from me. You withheld things I deserved to know. How can I ever trust you completely again? I dropped to one knee, not in a plea, but in a profound gesture of surrender and sincerity. And I can't erase the past, but I swear to you that from this day forward, there will be no more hidden corners. I want to fight through this with you, not just with empty words, but with honest action, every single day. In that moment, the room seemed to stop breathing. Emily looked down at me, her hand hesitantly reaching out to rest on mine. The silence stretched again, broken only by the autumn wind outside and the rustle of dry leaves. Every heartbeat, every shallow breath, felt like a silent promise to an uncertain future. Finally she spoke, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive everything right now, but I still want to try. I still want us to find our way back. A wave of relief and anxiety crashed over me. My heart soared, but I knew this was only the first, terrifying step. The true test lay ahead, but at least we were moving forward together, facing our fears and honest emotions instead of running away. Emily moved closer, cupping my cheek with a shaky, gentle hand. If we do this, if we get through this, you have to promise, you will never shut me out again. I gripped her hand, meeting her gaze squarely. I promise. There's nothing left to hide. I want you to see the real me, every part, every mistake, and all the love. It's all for you. She gave a small, fragile nod, her eyes glistening with released tension. The moment felt long and beautiful, two people standing at the edge of losing everything, choosing instead to confront, to trust, and to begin the arduous process of forgiveness. We sat down together on the sofa, hands intertwined, looking out at the fading light. The golden leaves were still falling, the autumn wind still blew, but now there was a new warmth in the apartment, a fragile but real belief that we could weather this storm. Emily let out a long, quiet exhale, her voice subdued but relieved. This feeling, it's like we're starting over. I managed a weak smile, squeezing her hand tighter. We are, and this time, we'll do it side by side every step of the way. No running, no hiding. In that shared moment, the room filled with a powerful, if temporary, peace. This was where our journey of repair truly began, a journey fueled by forgiveness, trust, and the enduring power of true, messy love. The Seattle night had swallowed the city. The fog was a thick, cold blanket over the small, narrow streets. The pale yellow streetlight pushed through the window, casting a nervous glow on the polished wood floor. The room was silent, yet the tension between us felt volatile, like a compressed spring ready to snap. Emily was on the sofa, clutching a pillow to her chest, her eyes blazing with anger, pain, and desperate fear. Why did you let this become so huge? She demanded, her voice shaking with barely contained fury. Every promise you've made before has fallen short. How am I supposed to trust you now when I know you didn't just lie to me, you lied to everyone? I took a cautious step toward her, maintaining the fragile distance. Emily, I know I made a catastrophic mistake. I can't erase the past, but I swear that from this point forward, no secret and no silence will ever divide us again. She rose, moving slowly, her eyes wet but fierce. You say that, but you've said too much already. Every time you shut me out, I felt my own worth diminish. I was hurting, deeply. Her words were razor-sharp, twisting in my gut. I knelt before her, not to beg, but to ground my sincerity in a physical, undeniable gesture. Emily, I know, and I am shattered by the pain I caused. I don't want to cause you one more moment of anguish. I need you to see that I truly want to change. I want us to walk through this together, past every difficulty, every fear. In that moment, the air thickened. All I could hear was the faint wind outside and the frantic, heavy beat of my own heart. Emily looked down at me, her hands trembling, tears blurring her vision, and then, in the suffocating quiet, She delivered the ultimatum: if we can get through the rest of this night, if I can find one sliver of the man I thought you were, I will stay, but if you fail me one more time, I'll be gone forever. Those words were a firing gun. I surged to my feet, seizing her hands, my voice rough with desperate conviction. I won't lose you. Never. We are facing everything right now. Together, one agonizing step at a time. Emily shivered, but her grip on my hands remained tight. Fear and love, a volatile cocktail, shook us both. She squeezed my fingers, then relaxed her hold, allowing a sliver of trust to pass between us. But the final test arrived. My phone, lying on the coffee table, lit up with a cryptic message from an old friend, referencing the exact dark issue that had wounded Emily. Her eyes instantly darted to the screen, and the doubt flashed across her face like a thunderbolt. I knew that to maintain this nascent trust, I had to confront it head-on. I'm going to explain that message, and everything else, right now. Every detail. No more holding back, I stated, my voice low but unwavering. Emily looked at me, her gaze still riddled with suspicion, but she didn't pull her hand away. This was the true pivot point, the choice. Face it or lose everything. We chose to face it. Even as our hearts pounded and the fear remained palpable, we settled onto the sofa, hands loosely connected, the weak lamplight illuminating our strained but honest faces. I began to tell her everything, from the very beginning, laying bare my emotions, my fears, and the complex reasons behind my actions. She listened, her eyes softening by degrees, nodding occasionally, sometimes biting her lip, but she never once walked away. Outside, the persistent autumn wind blew, mixing the scent of dead leaves with the cold, but inside, something much warmer began to grow: a resilient trust, a stubborn love, and a fierce commitment to stay. This final tense silence was no longer a wait, but the prelude to the last act of our drama, the painful, necessary step toward true forgiveness and enduring love. That morning in Seattle, the autumn sun finally managed to pierce the cloud cover, casting weak buttery light onto the streets and the last scattering of golden leaves. The air outside was sharp and cold, yet inside our small apartment, a profound warmth had finally settled, the fragile, hard-won belief that we could truly begin again. Emily woke before me. She was sitting by the window, her expression soft and distant, completely stripped of the doubt and fear that had haunted her for days. I approached her, kneeling beside her chair, gently taking her cold hand into mine. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice low and thick with emotion. Emily turned her head to face me, a faint, genuine smile touching her lips. "It feels strange, like a huge weight is finally gone. But yes, I think we can actually start over." I smiled back, pressing her hand softly. "We'll take it one step at a time. No more secrets, no more walking away. Love, sometimes it needs time to rebuild, but I will be patient with you, with us, forever." Emily tilted her head, her eyes glistening. Tears traced quiet paths down her cheeks, not tears of anguish, but of relief and deep, emotional release. I believe you, and I still love you, just as much, maybe even more now, because this felt real." We held each other tightly, a hug that felt both utterly familiar and brand new. Our heartbeats synchronized, a quiet reminder that happiness is rarely perfect, but it is built on radical honesty and persistent patience. To mark this new beginning, we decided to leave the apartment and walk around Lake Union. The golden leaves scattered with the wind, crunching beneath our feet, a sound that felt like the old hurts receding behind us. We walked slowly, hand in hand, exchanging quiet glances and small, tender smiles. Emily leaned her head against my shoulder, her voice soft and full of feeling. "Even through the darkness, I know we'll get through this. No one is ever going to drive a wedge between us again." I squeezed her hand tighter, my heart swelling with gratitude. "I promise. We are moving forward together, every day, every moment. I will never let you go." We stopped at the water's edge, watching the sunlight sparkle on the lake. I listened to the gentle lapping of the water, the whisper of the wind through the trees, realizing that all the conflict and all the doubt now felt like a distant memory, a storm that had finally passed. Emily rested her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her. It was a wordless moment, defined only by the knowledge that real love is the choice to confront, to forgive, and to embrace honestly. A few steps later, still hand in hand, Emily looked up at me, her eyes shining. "I know that despite the pain, despite the secrets, we chose to fight for this, and that is beautiful." I met her gaze, my pulse steady and calm. "I know. We went through hell, and now we can have real, honest happiness. No more hiding, no more fear." As the afternoon light faded, a soft, golden glow filled the window, falling upon two people, holding hands and smiling. Outside, the autumn wind still blew, carrying the familiar chill and the scent of decay, but inside the small apartment, a new season had begun, a season of renewed trust, quiet happiness, and enduring love. We stood there for a long time, looking at each other, understanding that true joy isn't found in perfection, but in small moments, sincere actions, and the continuous patient work of love. Emily smiled, bit her lip softly, and whispered, "I know that from now on we're in this together, no matter what comes next." I held her close, thinking, every pain, every doubt, every secret was finally in the past. Now, there was only us, true love, and a new journey beginning. The quiet moments stretched, marked only by the rhythm of two hearts finally beating in sync, to people who had been broken but chose to love, to trust, and to move forward together.